Welcome on in. What's going on, good people? Welcome into the Delmarva Sports Insider, the only live and local show dedicated to giving you all local sports all the time. I, of course, am Sports Director Trayvon Miles.
And I'm Brandon Bossert, the best team on the shore right here, still bringing you everything that you need to know.
That's exactly right. Welcome on into another episode of DSI. We've been very slow on the local sports, Brandon, I have to admit.
Admittedly.
But we've got something very special tonight, especially for our racing fans out there.
That's right. Strap in. As we get closer to the summer months, there's more and more news coming out that we could soon see live sports here locally, Trey.
Yeah, we've got a full show dedicated to the track. There's been a lot of chatter about the return of baseball and basketball recently, but racing could be making a comeback very soon here.
That's right. The past 2 weekends, NASCAR has returned at Darlington and then again this past weekend at Charlotte. But what about the Monster Mile in Dover? Well, in a recent press conference, Delaware Governor John Carney says he's had conversations with NASCAR regarding what the sport is doing to work around social distancing rules.
That's right. NASCAR's May weekend in Dover was postponed due to the pandemic. It's currently scheduled to take place from August 21st to August 23rd.
And as of now, the big question is, will that race be held at the Monster Mile in Dover, or will NASCAR plan to run the race elsewhere? Well, we're committed to finding out for Delmarva race fans these exact questions, so we sought to reach out to someone who might know best.
Yeah, that's right. I caught up with Dover International Speedway's CEO, Michael Tatoin. Part of my conversation with him is right here on tonight's Insider Interview. What are your thoughts on what you've seen so far? I follow you on Twitter, so I know that you're really loving what's going on. So just your thoughts initially right now of what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's been just an absolute success as to what NASCAR, what our industry has been able to accomplish over the last couple of weeks. The challenges that they were facing, given the circumstances that they had to operate under, from what we're hearing and seeing and understanding, they're doing a terrific job. And under the guidance of the state and the public health officials and local officials, it's been terrific. And so we're very encouraged. I think that the nice thing is for the sport is we have really been the focus of the entire sports world, and they're seeing exactly how it should be done and done appropriately and safely. And so far so good, and I think we're only going to get better and better as time goes on.
What can you tell me about, I know there is a date coming up in August for Dover. What can you tell me about that? Is that still on track? Is that definitely still a hopeful, or what have you heard to that nature?
As far as we know at this point, we're still on for August. Obviously, our May date is still in question, and I think it will come either as part of a doubleheader in August, or it will be scheduled at some other point. But as far as the dates that we started the year with before this pandemic in August, it's still the date. The big question is, of course, are we going to be able to host fans? And if we are, will it be at full capacity? That's the big question. I think if it is going to be without fans, we certainly feel or will feel comfortable based on what NASCAR has already accomplished in these first couple of weeks of being able to execute that, of course. But we put these parties on for fans and not for ourselves. So we're looking forward to being able to host some fans if possible, but we'll only do it, of course, under the guidelines of the public health officials that will allow us to do that.
What was it like seeing, as a NASCAR fan, to see cars back on the track and a winner being crowned and pit crews back out there, albeit with masks? What was that like, just watching?
It was interesting. The first time I watched the first race in Darlington, it reminded me back in 2001 when we hosted the first major event after the terrorist bombings in New York City. And it was such an emotional time that it really was a time where we felt the country starting to heal. And it felt like that again in Darlington. Obviously, the circumstances are much different. However, it really, I think that's how strong sports is. It really is. It starts to help the country heal and normalize and get back into place. And it has been amazing. I think at this country, at the worst of times, we see the best in people. And I think what we see, or what we saw in Darlington on that first time we tried this as an industry, are about 900 or 1,000 people, all from different walks of life, all different responsibilities, but everybody coming together as a team. And it really does show that if everyone is disciplined and focused, we can pull off something that others wouldn't think would be possible.
I'd like to thank Michael once again for joining us. Easily one of my favorite guys to talk to, and he loves his sport. Now, with that being said, Brandon, one of the really interesting things he touched on was if they'd be able to have fans or not. Now, we've seen a bunch of sports come back so far. One of the most interesting things about NASCAR is the fact that it's outside, and a lot of tracks have more seating than necessary. We see so much seating in Dover that does not get used, and they rarely sell out. How cool would it be to get fans in Dover spread out 6 feet apart and enjoying the race? I really think it's far-fetched, but what do you even think about the idea?
It could be far-fetched, Trey, to ask for however many fans it would be, maybe 15, 20,000 fans is what we might be talking about here, to try and spread themselves out by 6 feet. And over the course of 3 hours, 4 hours, see if they can actually do that. I mean, maybe you want to put something in those chairs like some restaurants are doing.
Easier said than
putting
done.
some things in chairs, making sure that people stay 6 feet apart. It could be done, and I know that NASCAR wants some of that revenue, and they want some fans to be in the stands. I know, talking to some drivers, that they don't feel the same way coming out of that car as you would when you have fans in the stands. You don't have that same energy. So obviously NASCAR wants that revenue, and they want those fans, but is it safe? We don't know at this point. I think we'll know a lot more as we get closer to that weekend later on this summer.
Yeah, the other part about that in particular is getting the fans inside of the track. So they can sit 6 feet away, but there is going to be a line if you think about all that, maybe temperature checks and a whole bunch. That's why I really say it's far-fetched, but we'll have to see what happens. All right, let's move away from Dover a little bit to a more local level. On a Friday night like tonight, thousands would normally flock to Georgetown or Delmarva to watch local racers take the tracks.
That's right, and those tracks have been shuttered since March, and the lack of revenue is a big concern for Georgetown Speedway. And we have learned that local tracks are taking baby steps this weekend, which is pretty exciting. Baby steps, any steps that's being taken, with an eye toward allowing fans sometime this summer.
Great side-by-side battle for a lap. Now it's 1x2 car lengths.
2020 started just like any other year at Georgetown Speedway.
We got a race in here at Georgetown, and right after that it was like the brakes got put on to everything.
We raced here on March 7th and 8th for our Melvin Joseph Memorial Opener, and then that was the week that everything shut down.
For local drivers like Scott Hitchens, there's been a lot of downtime.
It's given us all more time to prepare, check over things, fix rears, fix front ends.
While our local tracks are on hiatus, drivers have been going to other states like the Carolinas to get some time in on the tracks. But there is some good news. Both Georgetown Speedway and Delaware International Speedway in Delmar will both be holding practices this weekend. The question that remains, when can fans be welcome in?
Local racing is all spectator-based, you know what I mean? They can do live broadcasts online, but that still doesn't replace the fan in the stand kind of deal.
Delaware is beginning to lift restrictions and will allow gatherings up to 250 people beginning on June 1st. But promoter Brett Deo says he is trying to get approval from the state to race with fans. Without the revenue from ticket sales and concessions, plans for racing will stall out.
You need the concession stands, you need the ticket revenue, the novelty stand. Even a 30% capacity for us, like the restaurants are getting, would be 800 people. We have 2,400 seats here. So if we were able to get to 30%, then I could consider doing some events with our modifieds, our super late models, the classes that require more payout.
If the request is granted by the state and fans can again enter and enjoy the fast and furious action on the tracks, there is a chance Georgetown will extend its racing schedule into late November or into December to make up for the lost time.
But we need to get going because, for us, we're losing event after event, and it's just, it's really devastating for us.
And one other thing, Georgetown Speedway actually got a brand new track as the coronavirus was striking us, and we were starting to see shutdowns around the nation. So that just adds to the dilemma of Georgetown Speedway. But I see kind of a trend here with last week where we talked to the Shorebirds who said that we're not going to play until Major League Baseball starts. Well, we see NASCAR starting up already, but unless they get fans in the stands, that's how they make revenue. We're not going to see local racing unless we can have those fans come back.
Yeah, and it's just like the Shorebirds. If we can't have spectators, there really is no point for us to do what we're going to do. All right, thank you, Brandon. Great package there. That's going to do it for the A block. When we come back, we're taking you inside the lines. This week's After the Whistle is one of the most controversial figures in this year's basketball season. Stick around for the return of Delmarva Sports Insider.
Coach Sean Strickland from Milford Football. You're watching Delmarva Sports Insider.